Welcome, I'm the DeadwoodJedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. I am on the test server today because the clan boss draft is coming up and I'm building my team, working on it, testing it. And it turns out I'm probably going to make a substitution. As much as I love Runekeeper Dazdurk, he's just not giving me quite the damage level that I want for my team as a whole. And I made some tests with another champion that I will be bringing in for that final run. You guys probably already know the results by the time you see this. If you don't, I brought an Arbiter to help make this team just get to that next level. But what I wanted to do, though, is show you this team that I did build with Runekeeper Dazdurk, because it is an amazing team that can run on auto. You have to, take a turn to set it up, but more importantly, you can run on all affinities, which is pretty crazy to be able to do. So there's a slight adjustment you have to do for affinity, and on the test server, we did beat down the Ultimate Nightmare clan boss in testing all our teams. And it is Spirit. So I thought this is a perfect opportunity to record this team, give you guys an idea of what I was thinking when I drafted Runekeeper Dazdurk, and I think you're going to be pretty impressed with the damage we do. Now, I haven't fully optimized my champions. I mean, my Turvold's hitting super hard, my Fushan's going to smack, so's Mashald, but as far as Demitha, not quite there with it. Runekeeper I have about as tweaked out as I possibly can. So you're going to see pretty close to an optimal run here. Not 100%, but pretty darn close, considering that I have access to all my gear and enough glyphs to, build the Taj Mahal. So we're going to go ahead, check this out. We'll look at the champions, break them down a little bit in this video. I'll do another one talking about, I think I've probably already done another one talking about that actual clan boss team, the winning team for the clan boss draft, and we'll go ahead and do the run. And that's kind of what we're going to do today. So I think this is pretty exciting. I think you guys will get a lot out of this, so let's jump in. Oh, and before I forget, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. I know there's a bunch of you that are new to my channel. Subscribing is easily the best thing that you can do to support my channel, and I really do appreciate it. And then on top of that, if you guys have the chance and you like the music from today's video, we have a Soundstripe link down below in the pinned comment description. Use code DeadwoodJedi, save 15%. It's great music, royalty free. Gotta love it. Okay, this is the team that I'm using, right? We've got my Fushan as the lead for that speed ore and decreased defense. We've got Turvold with the weaken and crazy damage. We've also got Mashald in here to help us get up to that speed. And then Runekeeper Dazdurk, of course, is giving that speed boost as well as an increased attack buff. And importantly, for the affinity part, he's also giving us a nice cleanse skill. And then we also have Demitha, who not only extends buff, but can also cleanse the stun for us in this build, and of course blocks the damage. So that's the team that we are using here. And so yeah, let's go in the run. I'll kind of explain it as we go. Okay, so getting into this run, we got to set it up just a little bit. It takes us just a minute to get everything right. So we're going to start off with Demitha's A2, and this is a timing thing more than anything else. Runekeeper's going to use that A2, get us a turn meter boost, and then Fushan's going to go here. Next comes Turvold. We do want to use his A2 right away off the bat, and then we're going to go with his A1. It'll set up his A3 for later is the reason why I do that. Mashald here, we're going to go ahead and start off with the A3 skill. Is going to help us, I think, maximize our damage from Mashald. And then we're going to have Demitha here use her A1. This is why we're still manualing. And then we have one more attack we have to manual, and then we can click auto, and it should work just fine. So we got Runekeeper here is going to be the first to go. We need to use the A1 skill, and then we should be just fine. Now I can click auto, let it run on its own, and it's going to work. What's great about this team is that because Demitha actually reduces the turn meter, or reduces debuffs, right here where everybody gets the speed debuff, she reduces that by 1, and we have enough built up turn meter where it's not going to throw us out of tune. It's great. So that's how this is working for Spirit on that very first Spirit debuff, and then from this point on, she's going to use that A2 ability to reduce the duration of the stun, cleansing that off of Fushan, and you'll see that coming up here in just a moment. And then Runekeeper is going to actually cleanse the affinity for the rest of the fight as he goes at the very top of the order. And that's what makes this team work for affinity, which is just outstanding. Now Turvold, of course, is smacking in this comp, and the more buffs he has on himself, the more damage he's going to do. So you're going to see when he uses that A3, he should have about 6 buffs on himself, maybe 7 from Runekeeper, and that's just going to be an outstanding number of buffs that he can have on himself. And you can see that almost 800,000 damage from his A3 skill. That's going to be pretty consistent throughout the fight, as long as we keep decreased defense and weaken up for the duration. Now, Fushan is weak affinity, so we will drop decreased defense occasionally. It's going to definitely tank our numbers. It's not a great affinity for us. But the thing is that we can use it for that, which I think is pretty outstanding. Otherwise, you know, everybody's built pretty hefty. I do have Mashald in Toxic Gear as well as Runekeeper, and between the two of them, we get almost a full debuff bar. Now, when we don't go against Spirit Affinity, we can use Demytha's A2 one attack later, so that she doesn't have to bother cleansing the stun off Fushan. We don't worry about any of the affinity. We don't, you know, going against Void, we don't have to worry about any affinity debuffs. When we use Runekeeper to actually cleanse the stun. And that's a really good setup, and I think we were doing really good damage, about 2.5 million damage per turn. But I wanted to push those numbers even higher, and so I'm going to go ahead and swap him out when it comes to the final run that I do for the draft. Anyway, guys, that's the team. I think this is a pretty genius comp. Definitely lots of props to Face Melter, who came up with this. Absolutely brilliant strategy, and I love the idea of using Runekeeper Dazdurk in these clan boss teams. So I think he's pretty highly underrated as a clan boss champion. So anyway, guys, I'll get off screen. I'll let you watch this run. We'll definitely jump to the end because it is a long run. Even though it's 50 turns, we're taking so many attacks. It takes some time. So we'll jump towards the end, play a little music, and then afterwards we'll look at the champions. Look, I don't know about you guys. I did not expect 125 million going against weak affinity for Fushan. Oh my goodness. I mean, decreased defense is probably the most important debuff we could put out there. It didn't matter. Didn't matter. 57 million from Turvold, 32 from Mashald, 22 million. 22 million damage from Fushan, weak affinity. Yeah. I mean, obviously, all these champions are built to the 9. Not everybody's going to be able to do this, but the fact that you can have an affinity-friendly team with Runekeeper Dazdurk going at a 3-1 ratio, and it does this kind of damage is pretty impressive. If I were to build this on my account, I think with like normal damage, not going like crazy 9s like I am here, I still think this is 100 million on an affinity, you know, on weak affinity, which is pretty wild because there's so many of you out there that don't have a Seeker, don't have a, you know, Deacon Armstrong or someone else. You know, it's just yet another option as far as a way to build these teams, which is crazy. You know, I mean, obviously there's, you know, a lot of other really good champions in here like a Mashald, but the point stands that it's pretty wild the things that we can do just by getting pretty creative with stuff. So this was I think pretty impressive. All right, let's take a look at the champions so you guys can get an idea of this. I know you always want to see it, and these are pretty stacked champions. I will be doing a breakdown on my final run, so you don't have to just watch this one here. But anyway, what do we got? We got a bunch of offensive sets on Turvold. 7,200 attack, 152 speed, 292 crit damage. Loving it. Loving it. 71% crit rate, pretty good, and enough accuracy to land those debuffs. As far as the masteries go, we went down the offensive tree, and then we also went down the defensive tree. A couple things I will point out. We took Stoke to Fury, and that's going to give us a little bit more damage when those affinity debuffs land, if we get any counterattacks in there or any attacks whatsoever. Now, in this, we're getting a lot of cleansing from Dazdurk, so we don't necessarily need it, but it's definitely not hurting us. The other one that I want to point out is deterrence, and this is going to help us when the stun actually happens. Because we have a champion getting a stun, everybody with deterrence has a 20% chance of counterattacking. We do have this on Turvold, and that does make a difference as far as the damage he does. The next champion on the list is Fushan. Now, you'll notice I have a counterattack amulet on there, definitely helpful. And we do have one perception set, but generally we're going all offense here. 6,400 attack, 199 speed, 249 crit damage, and 246 accuracy. Enough accuracy to land the debuffs. Now, masteries for Fushan, we turn off his A2 skill. That allows us to go Giant Slayer on the offensive tree down here, and we get just more opportunities to land that Giant Slayer proc. It does the same amount of damage as War Master, so if you average more than 2 hits per attack, if you average that over the course of the fight, this is going to be the one you want to take. And with Fushan's A3 being a 4-hitter and his A1 having the opportunity to get an extra hit in, this is going to be the one we want to take. And then we're also going down the support tree, and instead of going down the defensive tree, and the reason why is he's taking the stun, so he has no chance of getting that counterattack. So we went down the support tree and took Master Hexer to hopefully extend that decreased defense debuff so that when it does land, it'll stay up for the full fight. The other big damage dealer we have is Mashald, an awesome champion. We have him in a toxic set to give us just a little bit more damage and also a couple of counterattack accessories. As far as his stats go, we've got him at 6,000 attack, 149 speed, 292 crit damage. I didn't even realize, but he's only got 98% crit rate. That's definitely something I'm going to fix before my final run. And no, actually, we don't really need him to land any of the debuffs. We're totally fine without that. As far as his masteries go, it's going to be exactly the same as Turvold, going down to War Master and taking deterrence. Like I said at the start of the video, I do not have these guys fully maxed out, and you can see that here in Demitha with no accessories basically on her kit. I just wanted to make sure she was at speed so that the speed tune worked, and then I wanted to show it to you guys here before I got building my main squad. As far as her stats go, we got 329 speed. That's kind of what you need on this. It's very fast, but that's kind of the big thing. Everything else doesn't really matter. She only gets one attack anyway, so, and doesn't necessarily do a lot of damage at these kinds of speeds, so just getting that speed was what we wanted. Now, as far as her masteries go, we did take lasting gifts to try to extend those buffs that she gets. I don't think it actually makes a difference, and the reason why we'd want more buffs is for Turvold's abilities, but it isn't going to make much of a difference because continuous heals, which is the buff we actually want extended, it goes at the beginning of a champion's turn, not at the end of it. So even if we extend that, Turvold's going to lose that buff by the time it comes around to being his turn. And then the very last champion, the linchpin of this team, Runekeeper Dazdurk, the Dazdurk as a lot of my mods like to call him. He's also going to be in a toxic set, right? Adding a little bit more damage to the team. One champion like Mashald isn't quite enough, so adding Dazdurk really makes a big difference. As far as his stats go, we've got him at 274 speeds, pretty fast to make this work. But he's also got 98% crit rate. Again, we'll fix that before the final run. 225 crit damage, and 3,800 defense. He's actually a defensive based champion, which is kind of interesting when building a team around him. Makes him more useful in more, traditional style teams. Now, as far as the masteries go for Runekeeper, I did want to make sure I took Master Hexer to extend the duration and the length of those poisons so that we can hopefully fill up that debuff bar more consistently. In addition to Master Hexer, we also want to take Lasting Gifts to extend that increased attack buff. Now, when we're going against Void, it's not going to be an issue because of the timing of things, and when we actually do the extension with Demitha, increased attack will be on all the champions for all their attacks. But because we're going against Spirit Affinity and we needed to change up the order of operations just slightly, that increased attack buff won't be on Mashald for Mashald's first attack after its double turn. So we want to try and take lasting gifts and hopefully let that last just a little bit longer. In addition, Runekeeper does put up an increased continuous heal buff, I should say, and we wanted to see if we could extend the duration of that, potentially to add a little bit more damage to Turvold. Didn't really pan out the way I would like to based off the timing of things, but it's definitely something that, you know, I considered as a possible way to increase the damage of this composition. And that's the team, that's the run. I mean, 125 million is insane numbers, period. And the fact that we're doing that against weak affinities, wild, blows my mind. But more importantly, it shows us we can really start using Runekeeper in some comps. He's a really good alternative there, much harder to tune. And you saw those speeds for Demitha. 330 speed is really fast. 274 for Runekeeper is not too bad, but it's still up there. And when we compare that to the speeds of a Myth Air team or even a Myth Fu team, those are considerably faster numbers. Now, the good part is the DPS are all pretty slow, like 140 speed on Mashald, or 149 speed, I think, 150 speed or so on Turvold, 152 I think it was. So like those speeds are pretty slow and allows you to build a lot of damage on those champions, but you know, still getting that 330 speed, that's really hard and probably not practical for most people out there. And that's the hard part with using somebody like Runekeeper. 3-turn cooldown is not the same as a 2-turn cooldown like you have with the Seeker. So Seeker's still going to be the meta champion for this, but it's nice to have alternatives so that if you don't have a Seeker on your account, you can find a different way to go about doing these things. So mad props to Face Melter for this. I will have this up on the website, maybe not by the time this video goes out, but shortly after that, so you can definitely check it out there. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. As always, check it in the calculator. If it works there, it should work in the game. Then you have to deal with something else if it's not. But that's all we got for today's video, guys. Thanks for coming by. Don't forget to subscribe if you like that Soundstripe music. Hit that link down below as well. Until next we meet, I'm the DeadwoodJedi.